It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the St. Catherine's head softball coach, Coach Colleen Powers. How are you doing today?
Good, Brandon. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college softball?
So I had the opportunity to play at a high level, and it was one of the things I tell my current recruits in a lot of conversations I have is that my major was softball because this is what I knew I wanted to do. Probably by about my sophomore or junior year, my head coach, Lisa Bernstein, offhandedly at a practice just, said, I think you'd be really good at this. And do you want to shadow me and start thinking about opportunities, to get a master's degree and be a graduate assistant somewhere? And so my junior and senior year, I spent a lot of time in my coach's offices, just kind of figuring out that it's not just about sports, also logistics and office time and work and planning and recruiting and fundraising. And there's just a lot of irons in the fire. So my senior year, I was lucky at Minnesota to hop on an airplane quite frequently because it's, warm weather sport, cold weather state. So first, probably 8 or 9 weeks and weekends on the road somewhere warm. And so I made a resume, started passing it out to every head coach we'd play. We're at sites where sometimes there's four other Division I coaches and all their assistants. Sometimes there's 12 or 16 or 20. And so it was just a cool opportunity to get my name out there and pound the pavement for that first job. But ultimately, I knew I wanted to coach because I was so happy with who I became through sport. And I knew that was a great way to make an impact on the world. And I wasn't ready to hang my cleats up yet.
What was that experience like going to Minnesota and getting to play collegiate softball?
Well, for me, I had to work super hard because I thought that, obviously I had a love for the game. That was one thing that was for sure. I felt like I was talented enough to play at Division I. And at the same time, I had to work super hard because I had raw talent that needed some development. And so, I was super fortunate that I realized at this point, how difficult the recruiting process is. And it wasn't easy for me, but it was a lot different because there wasn't YouTube links yet and everything was still on VHS tapes. And I'm dating myself when I say that, but in a way, it was a little bit simpler because I really identified quick that it would be a dream come true to be a Gopher. It was my home state, and being able to represent, Minnesota all over the country was incredible. And so I am very fortunate that I had the experience of going on one campus tour. I applied to one school, and when I got the opportunity and the offer, so to speak, to walk on, I took it in a heartbeat.
What was that like getting to represent your home state of Minnesota and getting to put on the Golden Gophers uniform?
It was a huge commitment every single day. It was not only a commitment for me as an athlete, but also I was super lucky to have a family that supported my dreams because it's not cheap to go to school. And it took a while for me to earn a little bit of scholarship. And that was just, the work ethic that I put in and a little bit of luck on my side with things opening up. But at the end of the day, I think I had so much pride in being a Gopher. And, at that point, it wasn't about, posting on social media. It wasn't about, telling everybody your accomplishments. It was just really, I had this goal to play at the highest level that I could. And that's something in my life that I'm very fortunate to be driven in that way, set my bar high and then, do everything it takes in order to get there. And the just gratitude that I have for such a special experience. You get treated like a million bucks. And not only that, but also just being able to be the school in Minnesota that is the only one at that point at the Division I level was special. And I had a ton of pride in being a Gopher.
During your time, what were some of your biggest accomplishments on the playing softball field?
So, I think number one, earning a starting spot. I had a unique opportunity, and on the other side as a coach, I fall back on my experiences often, and I remind myself of my experiences often because my freshman year was hard, and that's something that is very common for anyone, whether you're close to home, far away, no matter what level, even if you're not an athlete, especially if you're an athlete, there's a lot of change and a lot of things that are new and different. And, it's something that I think, um, the, uh, I would say number one accomplishment was getting on the field. My freshman and sophomore year, I worked super hard and I had a little bit of time here and there at second base in the outfield, but most of my time was spent as a pinch runner. And as a pinch runner, you're working just as hard as everybody on your team, and your opportunity comes at some point during the game, and it could be short-lived. And your biggest goal is to score one run, and that's not it's not all up to you. So sometimes you're on the field for 25 seconds, and other times it's 5.5 minutes, and then once you're not or that starter's re-entered, you're done for the game. And so then all you can do is chart and clap your hands and shout and run down the line and give high fives. And so I think biggest accomplishment right from the jump was by my junior year, I was earning a starting spot, and it's not easy to keep it, but at the end of my career, I was a pretty much an everyday starter for my junior and senior year. I think being looked at as a leader on my team was a huge accomplishment. I was given some opportunities to represent our university with, all sorts of different outreach programs, community programs in grade schools and elementary schools. And also, like, in-house on my team and in my program, was on a leadership council and kind of looked at as a team captain. We didn't formally have team captains, but I was able to become like a, stellar teammate. Maybe not always the best athlete on the field, but finding a way to contribute here and there. I hit one double and a whole bunch of singles. I never hit a home run. So I was kind of that scrappy nine hitter who was just trying to do whatever it takes to get on base. And so I think now looking back quite a few years later, it's crazy how many years have passed since I played. I think the biggest accomplishments were earning a starting spot, eventually earning a scholarship. That meant a lot to my family, and a little bit less student loans to pay off and throughout the last 15 years, as well as being looked at as a leader by my coaches and teammates.
Coming out of college, what was that experience like becoming an assistant coach for the first time and going to West Texas A&M?
So it was a huge leap because, as a Division I athlete, you're told what to do a lot. You're told when to be there. And then, going to the other side of things, all of a sudden you're the one in the role where you're doing the planning and you're doing the packing and you're doing the logistics and the teaching and the coaching. And so it was eye-opening, to say the least, of all the things I didn't know happened behind the scenes as a player. Now I was doing as a coach. It was a leap because, as a young assistant coach, I was 22 years old, and there was a 23-year-old super senior in her fifth year. And so being able to coach players that were the same age or older than I was, a little bit of a new experience. And then, of course, packing my car with everything I own, not knowing a soul, and driving down to Kenyon, Texas, was also a huge leap because it was a totally different vibe, right? The South, it's Texas, everything's bigger and allegedly better. And for me, very different. And so, it was a lot of bus time in Division II, more than I was used to, being in Minnesota, just because the bus trips were fewer and farther between. Because, yeah, when you go to Iowa or Wisconsin, you're on a bus for between 3 or 5 hours. But now it's traversing across a huge state, sometimes for up to like 20 to 25 hours a week on a bus. And so that was a huge change, but it was really solidifying that this is what I was put on this earth to do and what I wanted to start my career in. And here I am almost 20 years later.
During that time, first coming to West Texas A&M, what was that experience like, as you said, getting to coach those players that were older than you or close in age to you?
I think it was great experience because now I can better talk to young assistants at the Division 3 level where I am. Typically I'm hiring assistants that are beginning their careers. And so it's something that I'm glad I had the experience to do that. And it's really just about getting to know people, right? Nobody really cares how old you are. Nobody cares much about you until they know that you care about them. It's kind of like a coaching 101. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I didn't know that much. And that was also something that was humbling because I had a lot to learn and I still have a lot to learn. And so I think just the experience was very valuable because now I've had it. And at this point, there's always going to continue to be more and more of a separation in age. And so it's helpful that I can now guide young assistant coaches through that process as well of, hey, here's where to start. And, you don't need to jump in and start adjusting things right away. You don't need to jump in and be a disciplinarian right away. It's really about getting to know people first.
How was that experience like for you becoming a softball instructor and getting to teach softball?
So I decided, after West Texas A&M, I was there for a year. It was difficult for me with certain aspects of the coaching piece, and so I made a tough decision to transfer to Central Michigan. And I say transfer because I was a graduate student, and so I spent a couple of years there gaining more valuable experience, and I missed home. So I stepped away from coaching at the college level, came back to Minneapolis, St. Paul area. That's where my family is. And so it's tough in coaching to pick a location on a map. And, that's what I did. And so when I came back, I started becoming a instructor for Minnesota Fast Pitch Academy full time and coaching high school softball at Lakeville South in addition to doing some summer club coaching as well. That was really good for me because it gave me a different perspective on what it's like to just teach the game all day, every day. You're in clinics, you're in lessons, you're learning how to talk to an 8-year-old versus an 18-year-old and how the analogies are different and the techniques might be different and the fundamentals that you focus on might be different by age and also skill level. And so it was super valuable experience to get my feet wet in just that camp, clinic, and lesson type of atmosphere because you really learn how to teach the game of softball.
For you, what was that feeling like coming to St. Catherine's and becoming a head coach for the first time?
So that was also a leap because, I didn't know that I wanted to get back into college softball. I did know that I loved the idea of Division 3 because in my mind, these athletes are choosing to play because they love it. And that mirrors my passion and joy for what I get to do. The athletic director who is like 3 doors down the hallway from me right now, he reached out and they were looking for a new head softball coach and at the same time didn't have a full-time position open yet. And so it was a lot of trust that I put in him and he also put in me because I had never had a full-time head coaching collegiate job before. And so ultimately, I knew that it was a great opportunity in a city I love. I know I can recruit to because the degree is second to none. It's absolutely fantastic. The educational experience that athletes get here. And it was in a conference that throws down every single day. It's one of the top Division 3 conferences in the country. No game day is easy, and that's what makes it fun, even when you're playing a team that might not have a win yet. You might be a lower of the pack team or a high pack team, like whatever, wherever you fall year to year. It's always a good game in the MIAC. And so I looked at that. I looked at the fact that coaches don't leave the conference very often. And I also knew that I could win here. And so that's really ultimately what happened. I got pulled out of coaching high school softball to take a part-time head coaching job, which anybody that coaches softball knows there's no such thing as that, no matter what level you're coaching. There's always going to be thoughts and, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night, you're going to put time and invest time into it when you're not necessarily getting paid for it, quote unquote. And, or you're just spending a lot of time investing in being great. And that takes a lot of time and effort. And so it's evolved masterfully, because 13 years later, I'm still here.
What was that feeling like the first time you got announced to become the head coach?
It was surreal. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. And it's not something I've thought a lot about because I immediately jumped in head first and just kind of hit the ground running. I was all in. And so that's I think I remember feeling responsible for, a huge piece of um uh an impactful time in young people's lives. And, that's 18 to 22 years old. And so responsible for the fact that they're choosing St. Kate's, they're investing an incredible amount of resources in this degree. Making it work financially with their families is something that we talk a lot about in the recruiting process. And so responsible that they leave St. Kate's with a degree, that they're a strong, confident young woman ready to enter the next phase of their life, and that they're a champion.
During that time, what was that feeling like stepping onto that softball field for the first time as a collegiate head coach?
I don't think I stepped. I think I leaped and ran. Um, I am a mover, and I don't, spend a lot of time sitting. I don't need a bucket on game day. And so I really think that it was exciting is the word I want to give it. And I remember fondly, we didn't win. We lost big, a lot in our first 2 weeks. And that year, we were 8-26, I think was our record. And I'm super proud of that eight, because 8 times great people got on the field and weren't supposed to win. And we figured out a way to get the W. And I think exciting is an understatement, because win or lose, we were not concerned with the outcome. We were concerned with, this is the beginning of our process. And, you didn't choose me as your head coach, and here we are, and let's do the best we can with what we have. And, I continue to have great relationships with that team and those individuals. We were small. We had 13 players that year and 2 pitchers on staff and 1 catcher. And that's a lot to figure out and navigate when you're playing everything as double headers. And you might show your whole deck of cards or your whole hand, and whatever you call it. I don't know, but you're basically, putting it all out there in game one, and then you have to figure out how to win the next 7 innings after that game is over, if you're so lucky to play 7.
What was that feeling like getting your first win as a head coach?
It was under the lights, and it was in Florida, and it was special because that team worked hard for it, and it was really fun to experience that as a head coach. But it wasn't about me. I think that's the main thing. Is it was fun that the team needed it. It had been a while since we had experienced that feeling, and by we I mean them, because I hadn't been a part of the program during their last win. And I do remember that we got off the field, we got in the vans, we went straight to Steak and Shake, and there was no limit. So those who coach know, and especially at Division III, there is a budget, and when there's no limit, it's a special day.
Of course, what are some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far as a head coach?
13 years is a long time. And so I think the biggest accomplishment that I have every single year in and year out, is watching the graduates cross the stage of the O'Shaughnessy Auditorium and get their degree and their diploma. And I love seeing what happens afterwards, the offers they put in on houses and they're excited about, the marriages, the bridesmaids. I got to go to one of my nearest and dearest alums' wedding last summer, and every single one of her bridesmaids was a player that played for me as well. And so it's very special that they became friends, and I was the person who brought them together. And so I'm super proud of that. And, of course, like what they do in their careers. I've got physical therapists, I've got nurses, I've got doctors, I have neurosurgeons, there are athletic trainers, and everything in between. I have an ASL interpreter. There's so many business women out there, being offered their first jobs before they graduate. That's a super proud moment for me, and that shows a lot about the university that I am very proud to coach at. So that's the off the field, and that's number one, and that's most important. And on the field, of course, I'm very proud that in 3 years I was able to lead a team that at one point in time in a stretch in the 90s won 2 softball games in 7 seasons. Within 3 years of taking the job, we were in the top 10 playing for a national championship and 6 wins away from, winning it. And 6 sounds small, but it's a mountain to once you get there, be able to accomplish that feat, because it is, again, to throw down in the conference, imagine on a national stage. And we were super lucky to get to play down in Oklahoma City, kind of softball mecca in the United States. And in my opinion, the most beautiful field in the world. And we got to play on the dirt down there. And so, success is hard, and it's it looks sometimes like a trajectory straight up, and then you level off and you dip a little bit. And we've experienced all of those things, but it's really special that we've got some cool dust collectors that get to sit in my office, a super regional trophy we got to host on our home field, some rings, some trophies, some statistical champions that we've had here at St. Kate's. And so it's fun to look back and glance back, I suppose, in the rearview mirror, and think about our future, because last year we didn't make the conference tournament, and that's the first time that that's happened in a really long time. And that's something that is a constant thought of my staff, especially, and building our program back to and leading our players back to where we know we can go.
As a head coach, what has it been like, as you said, building that championship culture and competing year in and year out for championships?
So culture is a super big buzzword. And, to me, it's super important that we define it first and foremost. So culture to me is what the temperature of the room is when you step in. So is it welcoming? Is it intimidating? Is it fun? Is it low focus? Is it high focus? Is it high achiever? Is it competitive? And that changes every single day. And those who are responsible for the thermostat, I am responsible to bringing on this campus as juniors and seniors, and touring, recruiting, and seeing if it's the right fit for them and if they're the right fit for us. So I think the biggest piece in laying down and establishing the culture is the people, and how hard they're able to push each other, teamed with how much they like each other. And both are very important as you navigate through a season of competition. It's always more fun when you're winning, but it doesn't necessarily make it easy. And so building culture starts with people, and then it ends and continues with making sure everybody's on the same page about common goals, that they trust each other, they can get vulnerable with each other, and they're able to push each other, and at the same time be their biggest support network for their teammates. And so it's intentional. And like I said, it doesn't happen by accident. It is on the field and off the field. It is up to me, and it's organic. It's players, doing their own thing. And I actually think that when they're driving the bus on the team culture aspect of things and building team chemistry with each other, that's when the magic happens. When I can kind of step out and I'm not the one telling them what to do and when to do it, that it's just happening organically on its own.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your softball players?
So for me, it is about them, and it's their celebration of the hard work that they've put in practices, in the off season, in their training, and beyond. And so I write the lineup. I get the warm up started. I'm in the film room going over the things we go over before a game, whether it's small traditions that we have on game day or a scouting report for the specific opponent. Maybe watching video, maybe doing something to make them laugh and smile. It just depends on the team. It depends on the day. So for me, it's really about making sure that the prep is done and my players can enjoy themselves. Is that always an everyday experience? No, because buses break down, food doesn't get delivered. Division 3, we wear a lot of hats. We don't have a director of ops because that's us. And so when something goes wrong, it's our goal to make it seem seamless to the team. And so before I write the lineup, I watch them all walk in the door. Because sometimes you don't know what you're going to get until, depending on what time it is, it could be 6 a.m., it could be 8 a.m., it could be 2 p.m. If we're home, if we're away. But my game day prep begins long before the game starts, with the planning, so that things are organized and that there's a method to the madness. For my players, my hope is that they can show up and play free, enjoy themselves, have fun, celebrate, because that is the hard work paying off. It's when they put the party dress on and go out to the field with their best friends and play in the dirt, throw the ball around. And at the end of the day, if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. But I like to say win the day, regardless of if we're winning the game. And there's a step-by-step process of that. We have it laid out of how that's possible, because it's impossible and you do not control the outcome, but you do control the steps it takes in the process in order to win the day.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
So there are 12 total teams. Like I said, 1 to 12 every day is a throwdown. And we're lucky to be kind of central to all of the madness. Every conference teams in the state of Minnesota. I could name them all right now. The ones farthest away from our campus, 4 hours north up at Concordia Moorhead, about 2.5 hours north in Duluth, and then 2 hours south to St. Mary's University. So those ones are day trips a little bit farther away. A little outside of the Twin Cities off the beaten path, or St. Olaf, Carleton, both right next door to each other, and Gustavus and St. Ben's. And then right here in the Twin Cities is us, Bethel, McAllister, Hamlin, and Augsburg. And I think I got them all. And if I didn't, I'm sorry to the team I forgot.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams come to your home facility?
It depends. If there's a team from far away, they're doing their full warm up here. Some of the teams from down the street will warm up at their place and then come over. And it's different than it was 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago we didn't have dugouts, we didn't have seats for fans, we didn't have a bullpen for either side, and we didn't have batting cages. And so it was a field with a fence. And so we've come a long way. In 2018, we made huge facility upgrades to our outdoor space. And so it's a little bit different than it was before, but usually it's cold because it is April or May in Minnesota. And so it could be 90 degrees. It's happened. It could also be 40 degrees with snow going sideways. And so the game day atmosphere really depends on the time of year that it is, the weather pattern that Minnesota is graced with for the day, as well as if that team's coming from far away or close. I think our campus is pretty darn welcoming. And so while our field in our park is humble, I do believe we have the best grass in the MIAC, so the outfielders certainly enjoy that.
Of course, as a head coach, what is that experience like getting to coach in the snow?
All right, so there are hand warmers available. I have rented heaters for the dugout. I get myself in trouble with heaters though, because when my team's huddled around them, I know we're in trouble. It's very difficult to leave the heater once you're standing near the heater. It's something you have to build a little bit of toughness for, and it's definitely an experience because I've had players that do have some difficulty. It's harder to pitch, it's harder to hit, it's harder to play when it's cold, but it's manageable. And we'll do whatever it takes in order to make it as comfortable as we can for you, and for our teams and players. But there's just, as much as I like to say, even myself is used to it, there's really no getting used to it. We do have drop dead temperatures for a certain weather app we use in the conference. So if it's below a certain temperature, we have to mutually agree as coaches to play or not to play. And typically when it is snowing, it might be actually a little bit warmer. If it's below freezing, it's too cold to snow usually. And so sometimes that's a little bit better because it's warmer. It hasn't happened too often. I'd say probably 10 times since I started coaching here, and that's 40 game seasons. And we play 22 in conference, usually between 12 and 14 home games.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective softball players out there?
So it starts with a phone call typically, or a text. That's kind of where we're at now. I think young people are freaked out if they get a phone call right off the bat. So I prep them. I set up the phone call over a text message. Emails, sometimes emails are checked less frequently and I think get bogged down with a lot of junk. And so it starts with a phone call or a text message, talking through what they're looking for as a professional post grad, as well as a person, and as a 17 or 18-year-old at that point, what they think they're looking for, whether it's big school, small school, close to home, far from home, and all the other elements that go into the fit, especially what they want to study, because private education is intimidating. When I was in my recruiting process, I was very scared by a $50,000 price tag on some schools that I might have genuinely been very interested in. And so that's the part where I'm on the other side now and able to explain a little bit differently, not to be scared away by that initially. So then it expands to a campus visit, where they come on campus, take a tour, meet some softball players, see the vibe of the campus, talk softball with me, meet with admissions, and then they're invited to kind of do anything. At any point when we're practicing, they can come and watch a practice. In D3, you can't play into a practice, which is always kind of a bummer. But I digress. They can stay overnight with the team, do an official visit at, depending on, their grad year at different parts of the year. They can watch us compete. And then they decide once they apply and are admitted, sometimes before they apply, if they would like to commit to the program.
What is that like getting to see those prospective student athletes fall in love with the softball facility and the campus?
It's fun because that's the part that keeps them invested. My goal is to recruit student athletes that are here for 4 years that play for their full eligibility and that they graduate. And that's something that's gotten more and more difficult post 2020, as well as with some of the culture changes in um, collegiate sports. And so it really is about finding the right fit right off the bat. And, as they can come to that decision, it's also really important for us to decide, if you're the right fit for our program and my coaching style and my staff, and also just generally Division 3. We got good fast because we were able to recruit some high level ball players who chose Division 3 in order to be in a medical field major, or, just decided that the Division 3 level or St. Kate's was a really good fit for them. And so that's a piece of it, as well as, if we want to compete with the best, we have to recruit the best.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that softball uniform for the first time?
Oh, it's awesome. We usually do it in practice so that they don't feel some jitters when they do it for the first time on game day. It's nice that now the MIAC allows us to compete in the fall. And so I'm able to watch them in uniform compete during one exhibition game day in the fall, which is super helpful as we evaluate players and determine, what starting lineups look like and things like that. And so last year was the first year we got to do that. But it's special because they go from, being a recruit to being a player on the team to being a competitor. And that's really special for us as a staff to see the growth that happens from the first time we watched them play to the first time they step on our fields, until the last time they compete. And, the hope is that we don't know when our last game day is, that it happens sometime in the postseason where every day you're just kind of fighting for your life, and you don't walk onto the field thinking that, this is going to be the last time that this senior gets to compete for us.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those players represent St. Catherine's and putting on that logo?
It's the same. I think every single day is an opportunity to put your stamp on the game of softball, to play hard and have fun. And that's the biggest thing that, I want others to see when they watch my team play, is that they're having a good time. That, up or down 10, they are competing hard, they're enjoying each other, and they're playing the game they love.
For you as a head coach, what is it like seeing those softball players going into coaching and life after softball?
So, like I said earlier, proudest moment, right? If they become a coach, it's like extra proud moment, because that means my coaching tree is getting bigger. And not in an egotistical way, it's in a I can't wait to see you make an impact on these young lives and on the game way. And if they can take pieces of, my program and my culture and the St. Kate's way, then that's even more special. On the other side of things, when they decide to, be professional in something other than sports, it's also amazing. I know that I will always be in good hands with physical therapy, dental care, PA. I've got one on the way. And so basically every medical field is covered, and I can text my questions before I have to go in and, spend a copay or see a doctor, which is amazing. And, or, everything that they do professionally is special, and how they're taking what they learned at this university from, the top down, from the president level, from their instructors and professors and faculty members, from every single person that they were able to have their lives impacted here. My staff, my assistants, former and current, myself, the department. It's a special place. And so being able to see what they do professionally when they graduate is, my proudest moment.
What are some of your future plans for the softball program moving forward?
All right, getting back into the NCAA tournament for sure. It's been way too long, and it's not easy. And so it starts with the process, right? Recruiting the right people, character-driven athletes, and those that understand that, that character that they have and their work ethic drives their process, and their process drives results. And so results are never the end-all be-all goal. But I want to keep graduating strong, confident young women who are leaders in their field, and that they're champions, on ours.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college softball?
It's going to be hard and it's okay. You will get through it. We do everything we can in order to support our people, from an academic perspective, from an athletic perspective, from an athletic training perspective, physically, and of course, from a mental health perspective. There's so much change, there's so much stress, and that comes in good ways and in hard ways. And trying to stay steady through it and look at things as a learning experience that, not why is this happening to me attitude, how is this happening for me type of attitude. And just knowing that celebrate the great days and enjoy them. Don't be waiting for the other shoe to drop. And at the same time, it's a lot of work. It's not easy. And sometimes you might think it's unbearably hard, and rely on your network, whether it's the people that got you here, former coaches, your parents, your siblings, your friends, or the people, and especially those people that you have as a part of your new network, your teammates, your coaches, this administration, this building, the Butler Center, and your faculty, staff, everybody here on St. Kate's campus wants you to be successful.
What advice would you give those rising juniors entering their senior year?
Enjoy it. That's something that, don't wish the time away. Don't fast forward it. Again, things might start to get hard and feel messy. One of my biggest goals as a head coach is that the roadmap is started to be laid out for you once you graduate and get your diploma, that it's not a what do I do now? So there's not that stress of what's next, that the internships have lined up full-time jobs, that the applications are acceptance letters going into a doctoral program, a medical school, a business school, the next step. Maybe it's a gap year, maybe it's travel abroad and compete. But that there's a plan of action and that you can really enjoy your victory lap, as we like to call it, in your senior year.
What advice would you give those people looking to compete after their senior year of college and going professionally?
That's something I don't get asked very often. Typically our student athletes go on to play something other than sports. They're professional in their career fields or in their grad schools and programs. But if I were to be guiding those individuals into the next phase of their softball, which I have had assistants play professionally, and I have had some players play different levels of professional softball in various aspects of leagues in the United States and abroad. I would say the best advice I ever got as a professional is, the moment you arrive is the moment you realize you will never arrive. It's a lot of work day in and day out. Don't forget about the little things, and say thank you a whole lot, and celebrate all the people that helped you get there.
What advice would you give those future head coaches out there looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Ask a lot of questions, sit in other coaches' offices that do well. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call somebody random. Go to coaching conventions, spend a lot of time there talking to the people who have been there and done that, because they have a lot of great advice. There have been mistakes that I've made. I have stumbled, I have fallen, I have, and I'm not too proud to say that and I have apologized for the mistakes that I've made. But, my goal is to help grow the sport, help grow the game. And I'm always here to impart any wisdom that I might have, for a young coach or somebody who thinks that they want to be a head coach. And you never feel ready. And that's something that I think is important, that you are likely ready. And it's just about asking the right questions and making sure you listen to all of the advice that you can get, but also find your voice too. And that was fun for me, because my first few years in coaching, I was the voice of the coaches that I had loved. And at a certain point, you shift over into being your own voice, and that's a really exciting moment as well.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program?
All right, I'm terrible at the X, Twitter, but I am, let's see, my handle is Coach 10 Pow. On Twitter, my softball program is on most social media platforms. So of course, my assistant runs the TikTok, the Instagram, and everything else on the social media. But usually you can find us at St. Kate Softball with one S in between. Other than that, my email is all over the internet, probably my cell phone too. If anybody ever wants anything, don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. I love talking softball.
Thank you again, Coach Colleen Powers, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at St. Catherine's as the head softball coach.
Thank you so much.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.